grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Dudes and Beer podcast. I am Chris Jordan, your host, and with me tonight for episode 208 is, of course, our good friend Billy Joe Cain of the Radical Empathy Education Foundation, creator of Trapped, a VR detective story, a great, fantastic VR video game that helps to try to raise empathy for people who have been victims of human trafficking, and to help teach people the signs of people who are actively being trafficked, so that you can be more aware. Welcome, Billy, as always.
Oh, man, thank you so much. I love being here. We were just talking about how much fun it is.
Oh, man, that just warms my heart so much, especially after the last week that I've had. I just had one of my best experiences ever on the job site. And honestly, ever with South by Southwest. I've worked South by Southwest before. Quite honestly, like as a working technician, I'm normally glad to be away from the fray. I'm normally on corporate gigs in Houston for a week and a half, 2 weeks during that time.
That's a lot of stress.
So, for me, it's like, I can be away from the traffic. I can be away from all that stuff. But before we get too deep, everybody, if you like learning about VR, if you like hearing about VR, if you like other stories about VR, if you like science fiction, go check out audible.com. All you have to do is stop on by audibletrial.com/dudes, and you can get a free trial with Audible. You will get 2 books with your official trial. You will also be able to trade those books in. You'll be able to get all kinds of titles, all kinds of great entertainment. Stop on by audibletrials.com/dudes today to get your free 30-day trial.
Audible's awesome.
Audible is awesome.
It really is.
I am actually a huge fan of stuff like Audible. I would love to read, but with the mass amount, I mean, like, you're surrounded by the work, Billy. There's like a pile of adapters from my show that I just closed down yesterday on the table behind you. There's paperwork from it on the table behind me. We got a live stream going right now. It's
People
nonstop,
constantly ask me if I've read book A, B, or C, and I don't have time to sit down and just listen to or read a book, but I do have time to listen.
That's right. You have time in traffic. You have time, like, while I'm sitting at a table soldering. I could be listening to a book.
I love my content. Everybody comes into the room and they're going, "Are you consuming content?" And I'm like going, "Yes, I am." And I'll listen to my video and I'll listen to my podcast. Yeah. Because it's the thing, man. It's the thing. But, and of course, reading a book is always great, but I just don't have the time to sit down. Yeah. Kids, family, everything.
Yeah, precisely.
Washing the dishes.
I've got a 2-year-old crawling around everywhere. The last thing I need is just like leaves of paper all over the world. It'd be a ticker tape parade.
Yeah, exactly. Bluetooth, headphones, and doing the dishes.
I'm not aware of too many philosophy books whose pages are made of vinyl.
I'm with you.
to keep them clean and tear-free.
That's what kids are. One of the things kids bring.
And that's where Audible comes in, because you can absolutely get philosophy, modern philosophy, all kinds of stuff. It's great. And I know so many people that listen to it. So as the plug-ins, we're going to get into a little bit of the passion that is South by Southwest. Our experiences from South by, memories from South by's past, and what South by is to the world. I guess how the world kind of views South by, and the way that South by impacts the world. Because we were just talking before show, like the reach of South by Southwest is huge. It's massive.
Yeah, it is, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now they're expanding outside of Austin. It's like they're licensing it out, and that's good for them. Yeah,
and it's been an amazing journey. Like we were saying, to think back, I know it was my freshman year in high school. was the first South by Southwest, and to see where it's come to now, where it is a point of international attention, where you're talking about nights of music ranging from like a Japan night to a UK night to, a Scandinavian music night for like Scandinavian metal, to Interactive Week, which I just got done with, doing the exhibit that I did that I was showing you with the wild interactive basketball stuff, with video mapped floors on LED walls, stuff like that.
It's great to see all these really cool demos that are pushing the edge, and this is one of the places to do it.
Well, and it's interesting to see how it has grown from, like we were saying, come buy this $15-$20 T-shirt and come see all these bands, to if you want a hotel, you got to buy it through the South by Southwest portal.
Yeah,
that's where it's come to since 1989.
Yeah, it's morphed into a giant organization.
Yeah, and in 30 years, it has become an international organization.
Yeah, when it started, people were kind of like, okay, this is a bunch of bands that are playing, for a few nights. It's a cool Austin thing to do, and they have really done a great job of turning success into success into success, and always looking for something new to add.
Well, and it's interesting,
which is also challenging as a user or as an
experiencer, a consumer.
Right.
A consumer. Let's just be real.
You are a
consumer,
like
you were saying a while ago. Are you consuming media?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And man, trying to figure out where to be at what time and catch little beautiful moments.
Oh yeah,
it's hard. Like I had some friends that were they were waiting in line at the Continental Club one time for to try to get into a band, and they listening outside, and right across the street was a hotel. Essentially, David Byrne had walked out there with a little Casio keyboard and was playing a set at the pool. Yeah. So you're like, you never know what kind of beautiful moment is just going to happen at any time, because it's a crazy place to be.
Yeah, it really is super interesting the way that South by kind of works, the way that it is morphed into the literal media beast that it is now.
Yeah, it's beyond Comic-Con. It's
yeah.
I can't even imagine trying to make the schedule for this thing and print the books.
Well, it goes over numerous weeks.
Yeah, it does.
It's shorter than it used to be. It was for a while. There was like the week of film,
right?
And
they've got a lot of stuff overlapping now.
Yeah, it was the week of interactive and video games, and then the week of film and comedy, and then they would have the week of music.
True.
And it was right at a month long, and now it's closer to about 2 weeks. It's really more condensed. It's got the week of music, and then the comedy, interactive, video games, all that stuff is kind of crunched into about a week and a half that somewhat overlaps some of that. And it's, to me, as someone who works in the technical field of production, of live production, to go out and put on experiences like I put on this last weekend at the SAP house were just amazing to see people come out. And it wasn't just people that like worked for the company. The whole pitch was these are technologies that are changing the way that we look at and interact with the world. These are things that are trying to change the way we have a relationship with the world around us.
Well, that is happening. You're definitely seeing, we were talking a little bit about VR, AR, there's mixed reality, all that stuff. And when you start seeing projection mapping and, the things that you've seen, humans are interacting with the world in different ways now. Yeah. Or in a world that doesn't exist, or a world that's been augmented by other things. And it's only going to get crazier before it becomes like the norm.
Yeah, and it was wild. They had little iPads. And whenever they did the demos every day, like every day we had the same demos set up and stuff. One of the things that some people were demoing during a keynote was actually this fashion designer that's trying to be able to like get shoes to people all over the world, made out of recycled materials, stuff like that. So ecologically minded, taking care of people. things like that. And she came up with an app that if you take a photo of your foot from the top and side, it actively gives you your shoe size. Pretty interesting, pretty interactive. And if you're talking about being out in the middle of nowhere, more than likely that person's already going to have that mobile device. You don't have to carry like a huge heavy chunk of metal with you to go around and try to get.
You don't have a chunk of plaster to drop your foot inside of. A couple of years ago, I was working with a group that wanted to do the same thing for clothing. So online, there's just a massive amount of money. So it's like if you could take a picture of your body and find out what your actual size is and what you would fit, it would save so much money. And you'd be more satisfied with what you purchased online. Yeah. So there's a level of this that's going to happen. So that type of thing where you can take your phone and scan things in. We're not even scratching the surface yet. What could be happening?
Yeah, I mean it's already getting.
And people can predict, what the clothing needs to be, how it needs to be manufactured. They could do micro manufacturing. There's an amazing amount of stuff that's going to happen.
Don't quote me on this, folks, but I want to say Amazon is almost to the point now where you can take a picture of an object.
There's a lot of things that are
find a price.
That's interesting. Yeah, there was I've seen things where you can take a picture and it'll show you where you are on Earth. Like you're like, oh, this looks like a famous item. So it's like, boom, okay, I know where I am, how to get there, what the price of getting into the Eiffel Tower is, etc. I mean,
wow,
it's
it gives you the whole it's like lowdown of your location.
If you can imagine it, it's going to happen, right? I mean, they've modeled all these things, and they're all projection mapped, or however they put the textures on them. So it's just a matter of searching it quickly enough.
Well, and even at the demos that they were doing at the show that I did, they had tablets that were connected to headphones that were talking to them and stuff. But as they moved them around, the tablets were telling them different information and started showing them like an overview of like the Earth, and they could tap and it would like zoom them into like a crop field and stuff like that, and they could like zoom around the crop field and see it in front of them on the tablet. It was just wild. The absolute immersive technology that we have in the palm of our hands now.
It's mind-boggling.
And so much of this stuff is launched at South by Southwest. Twitter was launched at South by.
Yep.
iPhone was launched at South by. And we were talking about that earlier, and I remember I missed out on my annual gig. I've been on a show, Sarah Week, for almost the last decade now. This is the first year I've ever missed because I had a medical procedure done. And I had recovery time that overlapped most of the show. So I wasn't able to come in and do the show, and it was sad. So I picked up the South by stuff in the meantime that I was able to fill the gap. So it was great. But for me, trying to stay away from the fray of South by most of the time.
I think that's going to be a theme tonight for the locals. We do try to stay away from downtown if we want to get anywhere quickly. Unless you're going to get into the fray yourself, whether you're demoing or you're actually playing, or you want to be the consumer that's there.
I actively remember being at my show and somebody getting off early. Like, as soon as they were done, they were like, I'm going out to my car. And they took off, and they came over to get in line to get an iPhone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Drove from Houston to come get in line to get an iPhone because they were launching here at South by.
That was an event.
And, yeah, it was wild.
We were talking earlier about... I don't think this is the year that the iPhone was released. I think this was the year afterwards. There were so many people that came into town with their iPhones, and I believe that you could only have an iPhone on AT&T. Somehow they had an exclusive.
Yeah,
this is my recollection, right? And so when everyone came into town, it just basically crashed AT&T. So they brought out all these like emergency vehicles that would actually. I'm not exactly sure what they did, but they boosted the signal and they brought in more towers.
Repeater trucks.
Exactly.
Like what you use for broadcast, where you come out and reel an antenna up in the air and
Right, and why that mattered to me was that I didn't have an iPhone, but I was on AT&T. So it's like it crashed my stuff, and I'm like, oh, no. We don't need that stuff. And then, of course, the next couple of days, all of a sudden it was back up and running. I was like, how did they manage that?
Yeah.
That had to be quite a bit of logistics. And I think that's kind of another one of the big hallmarks about South by, which is logistics. How do they get things everywhere? How do they manage to have so many people playing? How do they manage to get so much beer, into the hands of the consumers?
Well, a lot of that,
the training and the planning and the experts.
A lot of that, of course, has to do with the fact that they are now partnered with Budweiser, or should I just say America?
Or should you call it? Was it InBev that purchased Budweiser for the distribution?
Exactly. And it really is the question of what have we done? Because like you said, whenever it started 30 years ago, it was much smaller than what it is. It was much more intimate. And I guess that's something to be considered, of course, is kudos to them. I don't fault them for going the corporate route. I don't fault them for chasing that big money, dream.
Well, they brought in so many
after it.
They brought in so many people, so many tax dollars. They've affected so many businesses in positive ways. And of course,
there are businesses that only make their money during South by. It reminds me very much of the Mardi Gras mentality in the town that my family's from, Mamou, where there are like 2 businesses on Main Street, Mamou, that are only open for the week of Mardi Gras.
I found a lot of that.
Their money.
Sturgis apparently is the same way. I drove through Sturgis in the middle of winter.
Oh, it's almost a ghost town.
It pretty much is a ghost town. Yeah. Their entire downtown area where it happens is like nothing at all. But I mean, one of the things we were talking about earlier was that not only is South by good for the local economy and the businesses, but it's also been really good for individuals. And when Airbnb started and all that other hullabaloo that went around it, it made people a lot of money. And I seriously don't think it really affected the hotels in town because they were already packed. And as we were saying earlier, that for those of you that have never been at South by, they essentially buy all the hotels and then resell them through their portal. Which, when I first heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then after a while, I was like, no, that makes perfect sense. Because if I'm coming in from, Scandinavia, how am I going to know where to stay?
Here's the problem.
Because you make 1,000 phone calls.
Here's the problem with that, Billy.
Oh, I love it. Let's have some conflict.
Here's my issue with that.
Lay it on me.
I can guarantee you, foolishly, there are probably a good 3 other shows going on right now other than South by Southwest. I guarantee you,
you mean here in town?
That somewhere here in town there is another convention going on.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I was at the Capitol Factory demonstrating Trapped, our VR experience on Sunday night. The Capitol Factory did an XR event. It was really about the Department of Defense. So it's like a mini conference that's not a South by Southwest thing. And so this was a party for that micro conference. And this is the kind of thing that happens a lot. It's like you have South by's taking up the majority of everything, but you have like these side conferences that basically kind of A, capitalize on what's here, and B, there's only 52 weeks in a year. So in Austin, not only do we have, multiple conferences, like we've run out of marathon times. So if you want to rent a street to run a marathon, it's like, too bad.
Good luck.
No, it's already done.
Get to us, if you want to schedule one 3 years from now.
Yeah. Maybe maybe someone will have canceled by then.
Yeah.
It's like, you may
we
remember
may have
this.
cured one of the diseases by then.
Yeah, exactly. Race for the cure. It'll be done. The cure's finished. But you remember when
I'm a horrible human being.
No, because think about it. Maybe that is the point. Maybe something will actually be cured.
It is the problem, Billy.
I know, that's true.
It's not the fact that I said it. It's the laughing about saying it.
But I mean, think about that other cause that needs, a 5K. Because they just have to have it.
Yeah.
But you remember when the conference center, actually, the Austin Convention Center was built here, there were some serious doubts about whether or not we'd be able to fill it up. So it's like, a lot of concern from, I guess I wouldn't say, I don't know which groups, but they were like, this is a stupid waste of money, blah, blah, blah. As soon as it opened, it was like, book for the next 10 years. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you see that when we had, took forever for us to open up the airport, which obviously increased, you know, our capacity from Mueller, which was, you know, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it took them forever to decide to do that from Bergstrom Air Force Base. So like, dude, you got an enormous bunch of tarmac that's already built. Can we just please use that? It took forever for them to make that decision too. So Austin, I think, in general, is kind of, you know, kind of stepping back to this whole South by Southwest now. It's affected Austin. Austin has almost fought growth when it comes to those type of things. They didn't really want to enlarge the airport. They didn't necessarily believe in the convention center. But while all that's been going on, we've been bringing all these, you know, hundreds of thousands of people in for South by. And so it's like Austin has grown along with South by, sometimes in fits and starts, and almost, I guess, what would be the right word, I would say, but almost in spite of itself, Austin has been trying to fight getting bigger.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, that's a constant battle in this town.
Yeah,
it really is. If you look around, it's all over the place. There's nothing but traffic. I'm from Houston, and we officially in Houston now have the widest open stretch of highway in North America.
That's not going to help anything.
As far as, like, it's 6 lanes on each side.
Yeah, I have a friend who's really into traffic flow, and he's like, it doesn't matter how wide you make it, it's never going to work. You have to, there are other issues.
Yeah. And that's just it. The thing is, like, the traffic still moves. Even with that many people, like, at least there's still some traffic flow. The problem is, there will never, ever be. The only way that happened in Houston was eminent domain.
Yeah, we fought it in Austin a lot. That
will never happen here.
Have you heard the history of Mopac?
The hippies don't want a riot, and they won't call it a riot. They'll
call it a sit-in.
You know,
a drive-in.
It'll be a drive-by granola-ing.
A drive-out. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to handle it, but if it's got something with
throw handfuls of granola at you.
I mean, like, even when they decided
all
to build,
joking aside,
yeah, they wanted to build
Mopac. It would not be
Mopac.
stood for.
Right. So, like, apparently they promised everyone when they built Mopac there wouldn't be any exits. It was going to be this nice thing all the way through.
Yep.
Everybody in the neighborhood were like, okay, we'll cool, let's do that. And then as they finally got the money for it and the approval for it, well, all of a sudden you needed to have an exit here, and you needed to have an exit there. So that's one of the things. Austin fights this growth in as many ways as they can. But again, you know, growth is happening, and you just have to deal with it because people want to be here. They want to do stuff here.
Yeah,
and
yeah, they do.
You see other cities like San Antonio really, they work hard on the marketing themselves as a destination and where, you know, cool things happen. Like the entire Riverwalk is man-made, you know, for the most part.
Yeah.
But in Austin, it's like we have a lot of really cool cultural things going on, you know, including South by. But you know, our citizens aren't always necessarily ready for growth.
No.
They
Well,
want to stay
and
this
the problem is
city.
the infrastructure is not ready for growth.
No, it's still not ready for growth.
Even if you were to try to put more lanes on 35 or 71, where the hell are you going to put them?
You're going to put them over those new condos and everything they're building on the east side.
The only thing you could do is tunnel or build another deck.
My daughter's into the gondola idea.
Really?
Yeah. She's like, why not have a gondola?
I recall that pitch.
That and everything else that they could do. Dude, have you been down by downtown recently? The number of condos that are getting built just on
crazy.
The east side?
It's all over the place. It's all over. And I moved right from the Riverside area. Just for those who don't know, Riverside is just one exit away. It's directly across the river from...
I explain it like this. So Austin starts at the river and goes north as first, second, third, whatever street. Well, Riverside's like negative.
Chavez.
It's like -1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
the river is 0.
River is 0. That's right. If you have a coordinate system, it starts with
you got a number
the
line.
river and the river in Congress, right?
Yeah.
That's like it's north of the river, you know, east. It's like it's easy to figure it out. That's how I explain it to my kids.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. It breaks down as
like
you get
figuring
north.
out the addresses if you're driving around and you see East Cesar Chavez.
You should be able to figure that out.
That's anything east of Congress Street.
Yeah. Even though it's east, or even though it's still west of 35, which people generally think is like the center of Austin.
No, it's Congress.
This matters because there's a lot of partying that goes on Congress and 6th Street, and you have to be able to find your car after all that stuff is done.
That's right, and you know, right now we have so many things. It's just wild, the confluence of stuff that is happening. Like, oh my God, the morons riding around on friggin' scooters. I can't even tell you. They're wrong way on the street.
They're everywhere.
Not a closed street. Just in the middle of the street. And I'm sorry, I know it's got a tiny little tail light. I really don't see blinkers on it.
There are no blinkers.
And I like, no.
You know, it's interesting. We might have
sidewalk. Put it on the sidewalk.
We may have opposing opinions on this, which is interesting in a way because
if they're in a bike lane,
now don't get me wrong, dude. Yes, safety
don't belong
and
in the middle
using
of Second
no,
Street.
of course they don't belong in the middle of any street. But you know the concern that we have about people on bicycles that are being hit, people on scooters that probably shouldn't be driving a scooter. I mean, one of my friends' moms broke her leg on one, and I'm like going, how often does she ride a scooter in her regular life? You're like going, dude. This is a safety
You're
thing.
65, lady.
And they all say, if I'm not mistaken,
how good are you walking?
You are supposed to use a helmet on this scooter. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you know, is there some sort of law that should be written? Or
I have
city ordinance that says you can't drive one without helmets?
I have straight up seen a woman riding with her friends on a scooter.
With her friends, like more than one person on a scooter?
No. Like
just
group
a group
of them
people, okay.
on scooters.
You got to figure out. Anything could happen.
Right. No, I saw somebody giving somebody a lift on a scooter the other day.
An LYFT?
Yeah, he had his little lift sign. How far?
Come on, I got you.
It was just whining out. They were going like 3 feet.
That is the ultra gig economy. Plus, he charges his Lyft scooter for $25 a night.
He's got it plugged into like a car battery
that he carries with him as well. Yeah.
A little motorcycle
making money
battery
all the way down there, riding downhill. He's got a little generator on it.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're riffing.
Little Austin love. No, I mean I'm actually a fan of those scooters, which makes me a weirdo.
I can see how they can be useful. I can see how they can get around. The problem is
I see more people traveling on scooters than I used to see walking around.
Here's my issue,
That
Billy.
Can't be too bad.
Here's my issue, Billy.
What, stupid? You can keep making more stupid forever.
No.
Okay.
I grew, and we're close to the same age. I think maybe you're my brother's age.
I'm 51 now.
Yeah. You got a couple of years on me. I'm
Whatever
44. You know, 7 years.
You're how much?
We're close. I'm 44.
Okay. We're close enough.
We're close.
Close enough for rock and roll.
Yeah, absolutely. So you remember the Don't Mess with Texas campaign?
Sure do. GSDNM over there off of 6th Street.
And apparently, America got lazy enough that we just started fucking throwing trash out the window. All right?
I'm with you.
So
are you sure
by
that
mentality?
I think that started with the first vehicles.
Let's just yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. It
I'm
started with the 1st vehicles, but it got bad enough
line.
that we had to spend millions of dollars on ad campaigns with crying Native Americans.
Or that weren't Native Americans.
That weren't Native Americans, of course. I'm just saying.
I understand your point.
With crying cultural appropriation figures.
Thank you. It's the little things that matter.
It's the little things that matter, Billy. Like with that
so inappropriate
going on, like millions of dollars on these campaigns because we got so lazy as a people that it was like, done with this cheeseburger, guess I'll just throw the wrapper out of the window.
They're speaking of
and that's the problem. You walk down the road and there's not like a bike rack where these things are. There's just a pile of scooters on the corner of Congress and 2nd.
My wife has always made the
laying
point
in the middle of the road.
Yeah, it's about being considerate, and that's something that's not been a hallmark of
That is
Americans.
not our society.
No, it's not.
Not anymore.
I mean, I I'm not sure it ever was, unfortunately. But you're right. There used to be a lot more consideration.
There is a point of manner. There is a point of, and don't get me wrong. Like I lived in Maine for quite a while, and it was strange for me. People would look at me funny for holding doors open. I was raised to hold the door open for anybody, man or woman. The last thing you do is let a door slam in the face of somebody half a step behind you.
I'm with you. I try the best I can to be polite to people.
People would look at me like I was trying to get one over on them. Like, what, do you want a tip?
Oh, my God. Okay, so I have to comment on this. When you're talking about people throwing trash out the window, there's an old gag that Steve Martin used to do. It was 77 or 78 when he did one of his albums, and the gig was... or the bit was that he said you should always keep a litter bag in your car, so when it gets full, you can just toss it out the window.
That's right.
And I was like, oh my God, that's America.
Right?
It's like you just toss it out the window.
That's it. And at least it's all in one bag.
I suppose.
It's not all over the road.
Yeah, until the prisoners go and pick it up. Free labor. Welcome to America.
That's right. But you know, and that's the problem, is the lazy mentality.
Well, it's people leaving those. Dude, have you seen that the people are throwing the scooters in the river?
Yeah.
And people are like trying
Let's just throw these lithium batteries right on in the river.
You know, that was the thing. They're like, okay, if you're going to protest, throwing it in the water is not the way to do it.
Jackhat.
What a nice way to say that.
Lithium's toxic.
Yeah. It's like, does it need to be said on the scooter? Do not put in water.
It shouldn't have to be said, but on occasion, it has to be said.
It does.
And it's horrible. It's horrible, the fact that our society as we exist, and as we are as a people right now, have to go through this. And I'm not going to even say it's a growing pain, because it's not a growing pain. It's more of a cancer than a growing pain. It was a growing pain long, long ago in our society. Now it's just a point of complacency, and nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room that's eating the baby.
You know, I could go on.
We should have talked about the elephant in the room a long time ago. Now it's eating the baby.
I read a book. So I worked at an educational company for quite some time, and we provided services. We provided after-school services for kids that didn't. What is it? The Derek Zoolander School for kids who didn't read good.
That's right.
These were kids that were having trouble actually reading and understanding words and vocabulary and things. And so I guess the point that I'm trying to get at is one of the salespeople that was there pointed me at this book called Teaching with Poverty in Mind. And in that book, they described that one of the biggest problems is that parents aren't spending enough time with their kids to try to teach them these things like manners and compassion and things like that. And it wasn't because the parents didn't know those things, but because the parents didn't have time because they were working too many jobs, or they had real life happening. So, you could call it the degradation of society because we're working too many hours, or you can call it anything, and that's probably a 6-week dissertation on it. But
there's definitely.
But these are the results, and we see these people tossing these things in the river or leaving them in the sidewalk, or who knows where, because they've never been taught. Because you have to learn compassion. You have to learn to care about people.
Yes.
Apparently, this book was describing there are like 6 basic emotions you're born with, and the rest of them you have to learn. Yeah, it's like pain, happy, things like that.
Yeah, you weren't born with hate.
You're not born with compassion.
No,
these are things you have to learn, and the way you learn them is that's what you live. So it's like, as our society moves on, I know this has nothing to do with South by Southwest except talking crap about those scooters. But seriously, it's like you have to learn that.
Well, and that's just it. Like right now, Mardi Gras just happened. Prime example. Mm-hmm. All of a few years ago, my buddy was working the venue across the street from where the car went the wrong way down the road and plowed into, 12 people? 6 people died?
Here in South by? Oh, my God.
Yeah. It happens all the time because street closures change, stuff like that. Even while I was working, streets were open one day and then the next they weren't.
I don't think that one had to do with the street being closed.
No, that had to do with the dude being ragingly drunk and overserved.
Yeah.
And driving the wrong way down a one-way street to begin with.
Right. But yeah, I mean, when things change on a, I don't know, moment's notice or nightly notice or whatever, or with no notice whatsoever. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could be, what do they call it? They say you're on a script. Right, so you remember there were...
Yeah, you're on autopilot.
Yeah, there were, what do you want to call it? There were studies that were done in the early 1900s about, mall areas, and I'm messing this up, but basically what happens is people park somewhere, and they think, although there's smoke and fire, I can just walk, to my exit of the building. I don't have to exit the closest one. I can just get over there.
Yeah, I can get to my car. I can get to my car.
They did the studies, and basically... Totally. People weren't rushing towards it. They just kind of walked towards it, and they realized that people were just on a script. They were just like, this is where I think I should exit or whatever.
Well, this is where I came in.
The same thing for driving down the road. I'm down Red River, no big deal. I'm hardly paying attention because I've been on this road 1,000 times. And all of a sudden, boom, I'm breaking through a barricade, and there's 45 people in front of me. And I got to also be honest, it's surprising how many people can live after they've been smashed by a car.
Well, true.
It is shocking.
Yeah. But it just happened again in Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
I did not see
that. Where a car
that.
busted through a barricade and hurt some people. This kind of stuff happens all the time. You're talking about mass amounts of people.
And you can't get out of the way.
Downtown space.
You can't get out of the way.
It's not like having a festival out at the F1 fairground.
Yeah.
It's outside of town. It's not like having a festival, out in a field or something like that. You're talking about it being in the middle of a major metropolitan area.
That people are used to driving through.
I guess you could call it a major metropolitan area. Are we even at 1 million people?
I will tell you that the last time I had read, the Austin area was like 11th largest metropolitan area in the United States.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm making mistakes all the time, but that was the last thing I had read about it. And that was a couple of years ago. So I don't know how big or how wide that paint, big they painted that brush with.
So we're on the map at least then.
I would think 11 would be pretty much on the map. But I mean, how big did they paint that? I don't have any idea. Was that just city limits, or was it the Austin area? Did it include who knows what?
I'm sure it's population per capita per square mile.
Well, we got 1 million people during South by. That's for damn sure.
Oh yeah, no, the population in town is enormous.
Every hotel room is filled. Crazy. Everyone.
Well, and that's where we kind of got off on the jag a little bit, was the fact of hotel rooms being rented out. And the fact that if you're coming into town, like, hey, if you were coming into town to just come to a teacher's convention.
Well, there's South by EDU, too, that happens.
Well, there is, and that's involved right there with interactive and gaming and all that kind of stuff. But if you were just coming into town for any convention other than South by Southwest, you would still have to book things through the South by Southwest booking portal.
100%, yeah.
Because all the hotels in downtown are booked through them.
It's not just downtown though. It's pretty much the entirety of Austin. Unless I'm wrong about a lot of things. But I think there were places on North 35 that were beyond 183, which of course to a listener may not mean anything, but it's a few miles away from downtown.
Yeah.
I believe those were booked too, but you know what? I haven't checked in a long time, but I think once they've compressed everything from like a 6-week period into a 2 to 3 week period. I'm pretty sure
like the Arboretum, things like that.
Man, that is super north.
We're not on lockdown.
Okay.
Because pretty much everybody at the event that I was working at was staying there, and they were taking a shuttle. And if I'm not mistaken, they were staying there because it was one of the only places not on lockdown.
That makes sense. There were some pretty decent prices up there, I remember, during South by.
Yeah.
My friends would be like, where can I get a cheap place? I'm like, well, about 6 miles away from downtown.
Yeah.
But you're going to make up for it on a taxi ride.
Oh, it was an hour or so drive.
Right.
For them to get back last
night.
We
talked a bit about scooters, and now we have like Lyft and Uber and a few other smaller type of groups. And that's got to be an enormous benefit for, the people here in town. I know that, trying to get home after you've been drinking at a club.
Yeah.
Holy moly. There just was not a way to do it. With every cab in the city working, there just wasn't a way.
No.
And I do remember also, this may tie into South by, but at least it's an Austin growth thing. When Uber and Lyft came the first time before they booted them out, for good or bad reasons, depending on your opinion on the matter, the number of DUIs and everything else dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
Because you could get home.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of it. They all jacked back up again, and they came back in, and now
Here's
they went
the
back down.
interesting thing, though.
Lay it on
a
me.
cab normally doesn't cost that much more.
I'm less concerned about the cost, and I'm more concerned. This is me. I'm more concerned about trying to get home after drinking. And cabs just are not the way to do it. I mean, I've been downtown plenty of times. I've been trying to find that cab, and you're fighting for it. You got to walk blocks and blocks and blocks away where you can flag one down. This is worse.
Call one.
Dude, I've done everything.
Call one.
Hey, now, not that big of a deal
need a ride
to
in
do.
15 minutes.
I've been through South by year
after
year.
Wow.
You have to literally walk all the way down to Street Zero, which is the river, to try to get a cab to flag down.
I can tell you right now, I took a Lyft home twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was $23 before the tip every time.
A DUI can cost $15,000.
Oh yeah, no.
So it's
I'm
like,
not saying that's not worth it.
I'm not saying that's not worth it. I guess I'm just saying that the proliferation of scooters, Lyfts, Ubers, anything else like that.
Good God, people, please, whatever you do, don't go out and get on a friggin' scooter while you're drunk.
It's a really good point. Yeah, we do have laws
you're not going to
against
get behind. If you're not going to get behind the wheel of a vehicle.
Not only do we have laws against driving while drunk, we got them on bicycling while drunk. I'm sure that
you're a motorized vehicle whenever you're on a bicycle.
We even have walking while drunk it's not just public intoxication, but it's like you walking while drunk is bad.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how are you going to do it?
Well,
get home through an Uber.
That's called public
Lyft.
Intoxication.
It's beyond that, though. I mean, I'm not exactly sure there's a distinction in this.
There is.
Not exactly sure what it is.
I remember the article many years ago about it coming out with the walk signs and stuff like that. Don't walk drunk.
God, I know.
Remember that.
So weird.
I remember that. And a lot of that is because of the proximity of sidewalks in downtown and the fact that we are a walking downtown. So many downtowns. If you go to Houston, Dallas, not walking downtowns.
Well, they're so large.
It's also the fact of there aren't shops, there aren't little restaurants. There are some areas like that, but it's not the whole downtown.
They don't have the blocked off street where you can actually walk around. It's literally
They aren't going to block off 6th Street.
It's dangerous to walk.
Yeah, precisely. And at 5 o'clock,
4 lanes downtown to try to walk
5
across.
to 7 p.m. There may be a steakhouse open, but other than that, they roll up the sidewalks. Business is done for the day.
True.
There are some condos there, but most of those folks are business people, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's not necessarily the walking, come out and do stuff downtown that our college downtown is. You have to remember that University of Texas, which actually comprises a good, I'd say easily 1/3 of the population of Austin.
I definitely can tell when they're out.
Yeah.
Because I can drive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good Lord, people. Unless you're a football fanatic, don't even touch Austin during college football season.
No.
Don't even come near it.
Anytime they're playing, stay off 35 because people are parking on the upper decks.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Crazy.
It's horrifying. Yeah. I mean, and just to know how that gets and to know that and they were, like we were saying, they closed streets down during South by. I remember a few years ago, people being told that they could not distribute stuff on the street that was not official South by material. There have been some interesting stories that have come out, but for me, it's about the technology It's about the new music. It's about emerging artists. There are so many industry eyes that have turned to Austin and South by Southwest for launching platforms, launching media, even politicians.
Well, I mean, think about it. What
Elizabeth Warren just came and spoke.
Well, you had AOC.
Obama came and spoke a couple times. AOC.
Yeah, it's definitely happening here. I mean, they work very hard to get great speakers and to make a difference culturally across the world. Yep. And I was sitting here thinking, I mean, what are the other cultural events that are similar to this? And one of them that comes to mind is Comic-Con, which is like another thing, and they have Comic-Cons all over the place. But what is on the level of South by?
Let's examine that.
You get Fashion Week in New York. What else do you have that's like this?
You're surrounded by my Comic-Con memorabilia. I got my signed stuff over there on the wall.
You're just lucky you're not at my house.
We should really nerd out sometime.
Yeah, we will.
Much more than we typically do. I'm a Comic-Con fanatic, but it is not on this level. You do not have politicians coming to do a panel.
No.
And just talk. I remember last year,
Comic-Con is it's a culture. It's like, I mean, I want to call it nerd culture, but it's a cultural thing. It is a
full-on.
It's not like what we have now, right? No. It's a subculture.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what competes with South by? I'm fascinated to hear your opinion because I
don't think anything necessarily covers the bases that South by covers.
I kind of
really don't.
We haven't talked about this yet, but I want to go back to before South by here in Austin.
Hit it.
So there was a place.
You're a native, right?
I got here when I was 21, which is 1988. But I had the good fortune to speak to some really amazing Austinites that lived through culture that was before me. So I'll give you an example. So one of my friends was a bouncer at the Armadillo back in the day. So the Armadillo Ballroom, for those of you that are out there, was a phenomenal music venue. And
legendary.
Legendary. Look it up. It'll freak you out. And what I was going to say was that since he was the bouncer, he kind of explained to me that this was kind of the nucleus of Austin culture. So you had bands like the 13th Floor Elevators, like super freak out psychedelic, that would open for Willie Nelson. So, and this is just an example. And so what they called that experience, they called it like Cosmic Cowboys. So the mix of like weird psychedelic stuff with country, so to speak, and like down to earth, the audience would mix. So you had the hippies that would be there, and then you had the cowboys that would be there, and literally they were cowboys, and that kind of they got along with one another, and that in a way was kind of the beginning of, we have a tech industry and a creative industry, and we also kind of have a real down to earth industry, and that weird culture really started at the place was the Armadillo, which was downtown Austin back in the day. So you saw a lot of the growth of this, the creative culture, the tech culture, tying in with the whole, good old boy, I'm a Texan kind of guy, and I come from that part of the world, so I kind of understand it. But having the cowboys open their minds to the fact that there are, other cultures here, and that kind of being part of our thing, that's where a lot of our culture comes from. Like, we have Samsung here, we have Texas Instruments that have been here, we have, Sony and every other kind of manufacturer, Dell, et cetera, that
Apple,
happened
Google,
because
AMD.
Yeah, this cat named oh my God, I had his name on the tip of my tongue. I want to say it's Kaspersky, but that's totally not right. Anyway, so we have a lot of like tech stuff along with like oil and, ownership of land and things like that. But that sort of like creative side, technical side, I think ultimately was where South by was born. It came, and now you're seeing it's a big cultural mix for everything from film, interactive, gaming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. probably would not have happened if it wasn't for the Armadillo Ballroom, which is a thing I would have never considered until I listened to Michael Priest, God rest his soul, explaining to me how Austin culture really started, which is why Austin is totally different than the rest of Texas.
Yeah. Because it is very much an appreciation of mutual culture. Like you were saying, the cowboys, the hippies.
We don't fight with one another.
No, if anything, the one thing they have in common is the fact that they don't want to fight. They don't want to be in any of that foolishness. No. They love Mother Earth. You
used to be able to walk down Congress Avenue, smoking pot, girls topless, nobody cared, because it was like, dude, this is a relaxed city.
You can't do that anymore?
You can still do it as long as it doesn't cause a commotion, I believe is what it says. But, it wasn't that big of a deal back then.
Yeah. And I think, like you were saying, South by, I think, has very much still culturally stayed an embodiment of what Austin is about.
I have to agree with you there.
And that's the fact that it's got its roots in music, but it's got its toes dipped in the tech industry. Yeah. It's got its toes dipped in the gaming industry. It's got its toes dipped in the film industry, comedy. It is a roiling stew pot of creativity.
It really is. And we think about technology as maybe it's an integrated circuit or whatever, but technology is being used to further our culture, and we're using it. Of course,
culture in and of itself is technology.
And if you don't use your technology to to connect with human beings, it's absolutely useless technology.
That's right.
We everything from the soundboards and all the chipsets that you have and all the the guitar pedals that you have, etc. That's done for people to take their creativity and their soul to have it come out a speaker on the other end for someone else to enjoy. That tech is part of that creativity. I guarantee you when they're designing these pieces of hardware, they're designed with creativity in mind. And I think that has a lot to do, or I think Austin has a lot to do with that. I really do. You cannot go out on a regular day or regular night in Austin and be disappointed in the music you listen to. You are phenomenally good if you're playing a regular gig in town.
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
And that along with the technology and the huge number of students that are here and how that's all mixed up and whether they stay here or leave and take that somewhere else. It's all human interaction, creativity mixed with technology. It's a giant stew that hopefully is hopefully it tastes
well. And I think some
wow, stew can go bad. Sorry, weird analogy, but it's.
I hope that stew tastes good. Sorry, I had to say that as creepily as possible.
It's all good, but I really do think that Austin has the history and the potential to continue being a place where culture can start and a place where culture can actually expand from here.
Yeah,
you can't. You can't do bad bringing Austin culture to the rest of Texas.
No, you really can't.
Try to export that technology and human culture outside of here.
Yeah, and we as tech folk, Billy, have, I think, a different view on the world than a lot of other people, because without collaboration, we get nowhere.
True. Yeah. Human beings have to interact in a positive manner.
There are a lot of people that can get somewhere, can do things, can accomplish things within isolation. There are a lot of career paths, a lot of businesses that can do things within isolation, and within protective walls. But
that's true to some point. But if you're going to interact with any human being, you have to have everything like a microphone or anything else that wasn't built by that person.
Sure.
So I don't know if I'm contradicting your point or anything, but I guess my real, I guess the thing I'm trying to get across, and I'm sure you get this as well, is we don't do this all by ourselves.
No.
These microphones were built, even the stands for them were built with users in mind.
Yeah.
It's designed for humans.
Yeah.
To be creative, right? Even the pedals that you were showing me earlier, I mean, those things are like perfectly designed for people's feet to hit those things right there at the right angle as you would expect your, somebody's foot to press, for example.
Yeah.
Right? It's technology with humans in mind.
Yep. And with that in mind, we really do have to think about how we interact with the world. How it is that we are part of the feedback circuit. And part of that algorithm, so to speak, that helps grow society, Billy. As someone who is a technology developer, as someone who does develop VR and is trying to, I guess, expose the world to some of the possibilities of how connected we can be through this technology.
Right.
Where do you see us going, especially working and exhibiting at South by Interactive, South by Gaming, that kind of stuff, traveling the country doing this kind of thing? How far off do you think we are from, I guess, being able to digitally find empathy with humanity?
Wow.
Being able to use digital means to build that empathetic bridge between people who no longer seem to want to talk or be actively involved in each other's lives across the fence.
Wow. That is such a huge question. So first off, I'm going to be wrong no matter what I say. So let's just go ahead and get that out there. But I think that the first challenge is finding a way to actually communicate with that other person in a way that is frictionless, if you will. So like if you think about, I tend to think about friction as, what is an interface? How long does it take somebody to actually, become comfortable with that interface? I mean, like friction could be defined in a way that, imagine that you're a guitar player and eventually when you get really good, you can have a thought and it automatically comes out your fingers and then it automatically comes out the speakers, right? Well, it takes a while before you can get to that point where the friction of what's going on in your brain goes through the instrument. And I would think it's the same kind of way when you're thinking about technology. If I have an experience that I want somebody to have, how can I create this experience in a way that someone can enjoy it with the least amount of friction possible? And as technology advances, I believe that friction is going to be removed as we can improve that. So, for instance, like right now with VR, for example, you have to wear a giant headset, and there's probably instructions you have to go through so you can actually make it work. Maybe there's hand things as well, so you have to learn how to use a controller. But the user has to go through all of that rigmarole to figure out how things work. So, for example, if you have a controller and you have to point it at something, pull a trigger to grab it, that requires you to kind of overcome that interface of the controller. Well, one of the things in particular in VR that people are doing is they're actually using things like leap motion or any type of what's the right way to say it? Basically ways that you can remove the need for a controller at all. So you can actually just use your hands. So people are trying to improve that. They're trying to reduce that friction. So you put a headset on, for example, and you don't have to worry about a controller. You can just use your hands to grab things. Eventually, or actually right now, they're trying to do haptic feedback, which is basically a way for you to feel. So let's imagine I'm picking up an invisible box or a box that doesn't exist, but it does exist in the virtual world. So I pick up that box and my hands feel that. So I feel like I'm actually touching that.
Yeah,
the point is that
whether it be like microfibers inside of the bottom
or
of the glove
that
actively tighten on that one side, so it feels like you have pressure there.
So I think that as an experienced designer, you're trying to think about how do I remove all that friction that goes between your suspension of disbelief and then what I'm doing. So the faster I can get into that experience and feel like, oh my God, this is real, or it's doing what I expect it to do, that's what you're trying to accomplish. Is that making any sense to answer your question?
Absolutely, because when I was in Vegas this last time, probably about 2-3 times a year, I traveled to Vegas for shows. And when I was there last time, in the Venetian, they have a new VR experience.
Nice.
And
Vegas has also been really good about putting in virtual reality stuff. In the 90s, they had some VR experiences there that did really well for them. So, I mean, I guess my point is that that's a great place to go to try some new tech.
Oh, they're all over the cutting edge of technology and entertainment out there.
Yeah, they are.
Anything interactive with their audience, they're all about it. There's been the Avengers interactive experience there for a good 3-4 years.
I did the Star Trek interactive experience in the 90s, I think it was. Yeah.
And this one, though, is a full-on VR experience where you go in and put on a helmet. And I was like, imagine the concept. Just close your eyes and think about it. And think about the space inside of the Venetian. Or inside of one of those, casino malls. And that's what you're walking into.
100%.
But you put on a visor, and guaranteed there's probably about 5 people watching a group of about 5 people just walk around in a huge snake pattern around this 50-foot by 50-foot room, just making sure that they don't freak out or bump into anything.
Right.
But don't bump into a wall, because they wanted to see what would happen if I ran through that wall.
The wall that's there or not there.
Don't run through the wall.
Right. Well, there are places like the Void, which are like physical, which is their actual physical locations.
Yeah.
That as you use the VR experience, the experience draws what's on the walls, but if you actually physically touch the wall, it's really there.
Yeah.
So there's so much that could be done. I was describing earlier to someone today, as a matter of fact, that firefighters use VR.
Yes.
And they go into situations where, in the VR thing, it looks like fire, but on the outside, they are actually shooting like heat blasts at people that match what's in the experience.
No, that's what these guys were saying.
And
they went and did the Star Wars experience, and they went to like the volcano planet.
Yeah.
They went to the volcano planet.
Sure. And why wouldn't it have heat in the room?
Yeah, there was actual heat. It smelled like burning rubber.
Of course.
Like it was crazy.
But that's where you break down that friction.
Yeah.
You're creating. Yeah. Like you watch a movie, they call it a suspension of disbelief.
Yes.
So when you are creating an experience like that, if you actually have like a lot less friction physically to get into the thing, but if you also have mentally less friction because you're like, I'm in a world that's, like you said, it's volcanoes where I can smell sulfur, etc. It's like, but I'm also feeling the heat on my body. I mean, your suspension of disbelief is almost gone. Your brain doesn't know the difference. You know the difference, but your brain doesn't. Your brain feels things, it sees things, it hears things as you're moving around, and you can spin. Your body feels different heat, for example. Your nose may be smelling something. It's like the more of those that you add, the less you need to worry about whether this is real or not, because your brain thinks it is.
Yeah.
So how do you connect with that user? How do you create an emotional experience with them? How do you take them on a ride? How do you take them on an emotional journey?
And I think, as we wrap things up, Billy, I think that's the exact mission of South by.
Mm-hmm.
Quite honestly,
despite convergence of different texts and everything else.
Anything negative that you may say, it's what is the ride that we can take these experiencers on.
Right.
From the day of 1989. 88, 89, whenever it first came about. Mm-hmm. And it was, what kind of ride can we take these people on through 20 bars of music for a $15 to $20 T-shirt?
Yeah.
What
kind of emotional experience can you provide these consumers, if you will, that's going to make a lasting impression on them? Whether it makes them love or have longing, or whether it's fear or whatever that they walk away from, or joy or jubilance or whatever. How do you take them on an emotional journey?
Well, and it's not just that, it's the fact of how can you make an impact? How can you make that emotional journey, make them reverberate to somebody else? How can you take a technology like Twitter and make people so excited about it that it becomes the movement that it is today?
Everyone's trying to
it becomes a void into which society screams.
Oh man, nice.
Thank you.
I mean, everyone is trying to capture that magic of Twitter, right? It's like, so you, as you were saying, people unleash, app after app after service here, and it will work when it resonates.
That's right.
And it's the thing that will work when you take somebody on that emotional journey. It's something that matters to them.
Yeah.
Twitter hit it. Who else is going to do it?
Well, I think, quite honestly, VR Trapped a Detective Story is going to be right up there. Once you actively start getting out in front of people, once you start getting in front of more eyes, and people see what this technology can do.
I kind of have this issue.
Just the numbers I've seen from the time I've been working with you and having you on the show and talking with you as not just a friend but a guest, and keeping up with your technology and the way that you've progressed. You have made great, amazing strides.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is very difficult to be on the edge or the cutting edge, so to speak, of technology and trying to make that connection, that human connection with people through that technology. And so we're trying to do the best we can to, I guess, stick through the point where, yes, we're on that edge right now. We need the rest of the world to catch up. I mean, this is the future of education. It is the future of connection with people. It really is. And so while we're here already and we're basically, let's just say, slightly better than a PowerPoint, we are hoping that we see, the educational market and educational experiences come out that can actually really make that connection, that can get rid of that suspension of disbelief, and can make a difference on a very human level using technology that may or may not have been built to actually make that exact connection, but it has that result, and that's what we're trying to use.
Yeah, and I'd like you to tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Radical Empathy Education Foundation, how they can share and use the hashtag ReefCares, where they can go to find or download Trapped, a VR detective story, where they can go to get the new curriculum for kids to help teach them about the horrors of human trafficking and how to keep their eyes open.
Well, that's a fantastic lead, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. So if you go to reefcares.org or .com, that'll redirect you to our main site, which is radicalempathyfoundation.org, which is way too many letters to type in. And what you'll find there is a description of our educational system. So we have we have three phases. First phase is empathy, which uses VR Detective Story, or Trapped, a VR Detective Story, to actually help you understand and care about the situation and the people that are victims of this incredible scourge. And then the second thing we have is that leads with, so we're using the empathy for that to get people to care about the educational curriculum, and the educational curriculum takes you through everything from basics of trafficking all the way to consent and empathy, so like you actually learn how to have a healthy relationship. And the third phase of our platform, our system, is empowerment, and the idea is to get people excited about making a change in their local community. So like a lot of people ask, what's next? And so we're trying to provide them an opportunity for that. So if you go on our site, you'll see some videos that explain everything. We provided our teacher resource, which is it's an easy download, and basically what it does is it points you to the best resources that are out there. It's curated so that we have people from the International Justice Mission, myself, other teachers that are making sure it's the best. It's totally free to download. And if you have any questions, you can just go to the question page or the contact page, or if you're feeling it, make a $5 donation. Set it up so that it's repeating. So call it a sustaining donation. Go through PayPal, help us out. It's really important for us to be able to manage our budgets. So instead of $50, donation. If you set it for $5 every month, it makes an enormous difference.
I'm here to challenge our listeners today. $1 a month. $1 a month, folks.
It's a huge deal for
You
us.
would be surprised what $12 a year can do.
Small donations add up to us being able to survive.
That's right.
It's a really big deal. Yeah, we'd love huge corporate donations.
You
of course.
don't think that $1 a month helps? $9.95 a year will pay for your domain.
Yeah, I mean, it costs us $5 a user for us to have email addresses. It costs money every month to have a domain with hosting. It costs us money every month to have access to Microsoft Office, for example. I mean, the little stupid things that you wouldn't think a lot about, they hit you. They hit you, and they hit you.
$5 a month per email?
Per user on Google or G Suite, yeah. It's $5 per user.
Wow.
We've recently found a way around that by using TechSoup, which is a great organization that collects donations. So we've gotten past that one. But as an example, these are just the tiny things that add up to, boom, every month, we're out this many hundreds of dollars that has nothing to do with providing services for kids, but it's the way we exist. That's the way that we have to work. So yeah, $1 a month makes a big difference.
Well, one last time, Billy, tell everybody where they can go to give you that $1 a month during this South by and beyond, my friend.
Hit the donate page at reefcares.org. REEFCARES.org. reefcares.org/donate. $1 a month makes a huge difference.
Billy, thank you so much for coming on, continuing to share the message of the Radical Empty Education Foundation. Hashtag Reef Cares, everybody. You should care about Reef. Reef cares about you. Reef cares about your children. Reef cares about your children's friends. Go out, check them out, see what they're all about. Go out and check out South by Southwest. See what South by Southwest is all about.
We're going to be there at South by Gaming for 3 days.
Let them know. What's
Friday,
the booth number?
1619. 1619.
And I'm here to tell you, folks.
Friday through Sunday.
Billy said it was hard to find. It was not hard to find. I found it in 8 clicks.
Because Chris is better than me.
You can go out and right now and buy a South by Gaming wristband. $25 a day for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, or it is $45
for the weekend.
And if you're a gamer, if you're into gaming, if you're into any kind of nerd stuff like that, that's one of the places you want to go, folks. Stop on by.
It's awesome. I won't have any time to go do anything, to look at all the cool stuff, unless my compatriots at the booth let me. But yeah, South by Gaming is amazing.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, on that note, Billy, thank you so much, as always, for coming on the show. While you are online checking out the great work of the Radical Empty Education Foundation at radicalemptyeducationfoundation.org, hashtag Reef Cares, make sure to stop on by the HC Universal Network, hcuniversalnetwork.com. That is where you can check out all the great shows, Dudes and Beer, Talking Sound, Yes But Why. We have some great new stuff from Richard Spazoff, who is a psychic comedian. Some awesome interviews there, delving into the paranormal.
That's fun.
Great stuff from our good friends, always at Scary Dad, at Gentleman No Class, and other great content. Make sure to download the free app. While you're online, also check out diamondcbd.com. If you are like me, have back pain, have knee pain, that kind of stuff, CBD is a great way to help alleviate some of that, folks. Stop on by diamondcbd.com and use the code DUDES420 on checkout to save a whopping 30% off your entire purchase there at diamondcbd.com. Everything that they have is made 100% natural with 100% natural ingredients. Until next time, everybody, remember, if you can't be good at it. Take care of yourself and each other.
To this episode
Good night,
of the
everybody.
Dudes and Beer podcast. To listen to our audio streams or chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for Android and iDevices, available on Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Breach.tv, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more about our sponsors and other podcasts on this network, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.